Good day, students. I am your GE8 Ethics Instructor, Mr. John Cyril Pabelona, RL. For today, we are going to discuss about the second chapter of your module or the lesson 2 of your module, which is the virtue of ethics as to Aristotle. But before we start our discussion, at the end of this module, the students or you as a learner should be able to define the meaning of eudaimonia or happiness and its relation to ethics. Differentiate the parts of the soul and its relation to the respective functions. Articulate the role of virtue in crafting an ethical life. Determine the role of habit in the formation of virtuous character. And to articulate the difference between philosophical knowledge and practical wisdom. I believe as we start our discussion, you will listen very actively. Virtue ethics is a broad term for theories that emphasize the role of character and virtue in moral philosophy rather than either doing one's duty or acting in order to bring about good consequences. A virtue ethicist is likely to give you this kind of moral advice. Act a virtuous person would act in your situation. Most virtue ethics theories take their inspiration from Aristotle, who declared that a virtuous person is someone who has ideal character traits. These traits derived from the natural internal tendencies but need to be nurtured. However, once established, they will become stable. For example, a virtuous person is someone who is kind across many situations over a lifetime because that is her or his character and not because she or he wants to maximize utility or gain favors or simply do her duty. Here are some common objections to virtue ethics. Its theories provide a self-centered conception of ethics because human flourishing is seen as end in itself and does not sufficiently consider the extent to which our actions affect other people. Virtue ethics also does not provide guidance on how we should act. So, there are no clear principles for guiding actions other than act as a virtuous person would act given the situation. Lastly, the ability to cultivate the right virtues will be affected by a number of different factors. So, beyond a person's control, due to it might be the education, society, friends, and the family. So, what is eudaimonia? Eudaimonia, in its simplest translated form, it is often take mean happiness. Sometimes it is translated from the original ancient Greek as welfare, sometimes flourishing, and sometimes as well-being. The concept of eudaimonia comes from Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, his philosophical work on the science of happiness. As noted, the concept of eudaimonia can be traced back to Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. Prior to this, or however, Athenian philosophers such as Socrates and Plato were already entertaining similar concepts. How one can achieve happiness? According to Aristotle, achieving happiness is rounded off his discussion of ethical living with a more detailed description of the achievement of a true happiness. Pleasure is not a good itself. He argued since it is by its nature incomplete, but worthwhile activities are often associated with their own distinctive pleasure. Hence, we are rightly guided in life by our natural preference for engaging in pleasant activities rather than in unpleasant ones. Genuine happiness lies in the action that leads to virtue. since this alone provides true value and not just amusement. Thus, Aristotle held that a contemplation is the highest form of moral activity because it is continuous, pleasant, self sufficient, and let's proceed to the weakness of the will. But doing the right thing is not always so simple, even though few people deliberately choose to develop vicious habits. Aristotle sharply disagreed with Socrates' belief that knowing what is right always results in doing it. The great enemy of moral conduct on Aristotle's view is precisely the failure to behave well even on those occasions when one's deliberation has resulted in a clear knowledge of what is right. Incontinent agents suffer from a sort of weakness of the will that prevents them from carrying out actions in conformity with what they have reasoned. This may appear to be a simple failure of intelligence, Aristotle acknowledged, since the acrotic individual seems not to draw the appropriate connecting between the general moral rule and the particular case to which it applies. Somehow, the overwhelming prospect of some great pleasure seemed to be obscure one's perception of what is truly good. But this difficulty, Aristotle held, need not to be fatal to the achievement of virtue. Voluntary action. Because ethics is a practical rather than a theoretical science, Aristotle also gave careful consideration to the aspects of human nature involved in acting and accepting moral responsibility. Moral evaluation of an action presupposes the attribution of responsibility to a human agent. But in certain circumstances, this attribution would not be appropriate. Responsible action must be undertaken voluntarily on Aristotle's view, and human actions are involuntarily under two distinct conditions. For voluntary action, first, actions that are produced by some external force, or perhaps under an extreme duress from outside the agents, are taken involuntarily, and agent is not responsible for them. One of its example is when someone grabs some part of your body and use it to hit someone. Second is actions performed out of ignorance are also involuntary. So, example, if you are doing some exercises in your physical education subjects and you accidentally hit someone, so that is the second voluntary action. Okay, that is not your intention to hurt somebody, but it is just an accident. Do you have questions? For the submission of your modules, MWF and TTH class will be submitted every Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. For a Saturday and Sunday class, you are going to submit your module every Saturday of the next class or the next discussion. If you have concerns, please feel free to ask. You may use our Google Classroom or even use our Facebook group chat, or you can even personal message me in Facebook. That's all for today, and I hope that you've understand our second lesson in GE8 Ethics. See you soon, keep safe, and God bless.